stop until the road's done and then we pick up again. Because they're not supposed to be, I mean, I'm full. Yes, right, and they're blasting, yeah, they're using a chainsaw.
Now, why-
If it didn't stop tonight, I was gonna start next Sunday. Yeah, like tomorrow morning.
Okay, I just have to see that that's happening. Now I
Let's
see
make a
it.
chainsaw.
and
Yeah,
now-
right, but they'll make it worse.
Mhm.
So it's all day.
Right.
Yes, incessant.
We'll hear from Sarah or Kelsey.
So when he says, they all know you. It's really, come on. They're trying, I mean, I can't get mad at them, they're just doing their job. But I really want to be mad at someone.
Yeah.
But I can't be mad at them because they're doing a good job, they're really working on this, yeah. The whole thing goes fast. Oh, were they on the ball? They were doing calisthenics in the foyer. Oh, really? Wow. That's loud.
Yeah, as loud as it could.
Holy cow.
So I came out my bedroom and I said, you do understand this is a neighborhood? And then you woke me up.
Mhm.
I'm
I
sorry
would've been
that
that
nice.
I'm never
Okay,
okay.
now. 5 AM on Saturday.
That was last summer, you mean? or-
No, our Saturday. Okay, so.
I just let my dog out.
I mean, I'm not a sleeper in, but I don't wanna wake up at 5. And they were, all up and hollering while they were doing their push-ups.
Yeah, they had spirit.
Yeah,
They had spirit.
I didn't.
Spirited exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
But are we on,
We're going, yes.
on the meeting?
Oh, yeah. Fine. Okay, we're good.
Yay, nay?
Yes, we are.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You
I just
come
thought the
through.
sooner we start, the sooner.
We're not past the
Go for it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Work session.
Work session, excuse me, it's 6:01.
So I will call the roll of this.
Thank you.
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Deborah Adams,
Here.
Aaron Hanson,
Here.
Casey Kinsman is absent, Mike Mickelson,
Here.
Wendy Rainey,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Dave Zastro,
Here.
and that's a quorum on council.
Thank you. Yeah, so this work session is to continue our work on strategic planning and I think this, well, I know it's, the first work session was back in February when we started this.
This is number 3.
This is number 3, right? So the first one was in February, then there was one in March. And this is number 3. And so. I'm trying to think about I remember Councilmember Kinsman saying we need to do strategic planning and I think that the first emphasis that he mentioned was wanting to talk about infrastructure. Basically, we've been working on coming up with a system, I think, for prioritizing infrastructure. And then, of course, the really big question is how do we pay for it? So that's part of what I see us trying to accomplish with these efforts. So I worked with Sam a little bit, talked with her, she put the packet together. And maybe I will Sam talk about it for a little bit. And then-
Fix my microphone, sorry.
Explain to them, I've only just learned that if you go back and forth like this and don't touch this, it doesn't give you that notice. But I get that you have to keep it right, in the right place first.
I thought I'll do it before the meeting. Okay, let's see. Yes, the first one was February 19th. I included the CIP list that was included at that meeting, so you could see the kind of the overall list for the people who weren't there. And at that meeting, we also went over the previous, how many city managers ago now? A few city managers ago. Strategic plan kind of outlined and we adopted those, things that I mentioned in the, Yes, infrastructure, financial plan, economic development, development partnerships, and internal services. So those were what we kind of agreed on at that point in time were the components of a strategic plan. And we had been talking mostly about infrastructure prior to that. So at that meeting, I just walked right into infrastructure. And here we are today. And we've also had a few other work sessions. You all were here for the last one, which was last week, 2 weeks ago, the budget one. And we had one other work session, but I can't remember what that was. So I think the first thing that we want to try to do is answer some questions and try to stay focused.
I realize there's one other thing I want to say, can I interject just for a moment? I just wanna, to, I guess, kind of set the stage a little bit, say that this is, I guess, how I see this. And people can disagree or say we need to do it differently, but I see this as kind of an iterative process. We have the strategic plan that Sam mentioned was done in 2017. We have the city's comprehensive plan that was done in 2019. And we have the capital projects list that's in the back of every council packet, which is not exactly a laundry list, but a pretty comprehensive, maybe not exactly. completely
Yeah,
comprehensive, but
it's not the same as what was submitted in that February 17th. That includes a lot of smaller projects,
Right.
And things, so. That list in the past has always been something that we would recommend to legislation.
right,
Because we can, and use for grants, because you can say it's been in a public process, you could use it in your application, so you try to get kind of the high priority, large, and a few smaller projects within that.
right, yeah, it's good to have like the really big ones, but then if somebody. In the days of yore, when it happened every now and then, that somebody would say, you know, we've got $300,000, do you have a project? Typically, there would be something on the list we could slot in there and capture that money. So in terms of what we're trying to do tonight, it's I think we wanna confirm some things that were talked about earlier, or see if there's disagreement and we need to modify it differently. And then roughly work our way into a format that's gonna give us a list of priorities, a table that can help us chart out how we pay for it over time. And then some project summaries like this one, also Sam put in the packet. And also keeping in mind that all of this has to fit within the parameters of what we talked about before, which is trying to rebuild the general fund. So those are the big constraints that we're operating inside of. Thanks for letting me talk.
So I guess, I feel like we could just walk through the memo.
Yeah,
let's do it. So. The CIP list is attached. We, at a previous meeting, those two previous meetings, we discussed our priorities. And we have some really good estimates, or we will have some really good estimates from the water master plan and the sewer master plan, which we got a grant to do each of those for, on the council engineering as a competing project. The other thing that we have done to get some assessments of buildings is the Kaufman engineer study, the condition assessment, and that is on the city webpage. And they went through a list of buildings and did a kind of a twofold thing. One was like, what do we need to do to make it come to code? Is it structurally okay? And what does that cost look like? On both sides, like, is it a tear down and we rebuild it, what does that look like? What is the Band-Aid cost? And then in some of them, they actually did more of a, like, you could Band-Aid this and get this out of your building, but at some point, you're gonna have a major project, a roof or some structural Well, HVAC is another big structural thing, not structural, sorry, but project. So those are kind of where my data is gonna be to put in here. And as you see from the list that, is the CIP list of the staff, there is a lot of projects that we're not gonna have. You know, deep current and engineer type estimates. But we can work on those and, so we chose the pool, the public safety building, water, sewer. And then I would just like to have the discussion of adding roads to our top 5, to make it a top 5 priority. I feel like it's a pretty big need, and it's a very expensive project to do. So, we do have some data for that. We did in 2016, we did Harbor Loop and Nicolak Way and up to the stop sign. And at that time, we did a list of priorities and, roads that need to be done. So we do have some data for that, and we have ongoing public requests for road work for the same roads over and over again, so we have that as well. For roads, we might have a little more funding opportunities at a local level than we do with some of the other. That's why I would want to put it on to the top 5 and try to get it really parsed out. Grants are out there. We suffer because we don't have, it's always about safety. And we don't have a lot of accidents or fatalities to, it's kind of a sick way
We
of
suffer by not having
doing it.
fatalities.
You get more points if you have those kinds of things.
Mayor Smith,
Yes.
sorry, Sam, what was the 5th one? I've got pool, water and sewer, roads, public safety building. What was the 5th one?
Water and water were separate.
They're separate things.
Oh,
In-
see.
But
Well, in the
streets.
whole world.
Okay.
Well, he said
He
roads.
said,
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was combining water and sewer
Oh,
as one.
okay.
Mayor Smith,
Yes,
so I'm in agreement that we add roads in because first of all. If we do fix up some things like water and sewer upgrades, we're tearing up roads and we might as well fix the roads. And they all go hand in hand and you're not gonna get to the pool if you don't have a road to get there, so.
Yeah.
It's like money needs to be attached to all these projects and roads need to be attached to all these.
Yeah, any sewer upgrade, the road's gonna be tore up, or if a road is fixed, it's gonna be tore up and sewer upgrade could occur, so you could piggyback those guys together pretty easy, like Second Street, we will be doing some sewer upgrades up there. So that's our first decision. Does everybody like that idea?
That's enough.
Councilmember Ray.
With the pool, like, are you talking about just maintaining the pool being on that list? Because if we need a new pool, which we do, I think we really need to be tying that in with the high school and tying the school together with the pool somehow. I don't know if that'll help with funding, I don't know if that'll hurt with funding, but the high school needs to be upgraded and tying the pool to the school and putting a new building together, you know, we might do better to find funding to combine both.
We,
For a new building, if we're looking to just upgrade the existing structure, then I would leave it.
you would leave them.
Like, I would leave it alone and not tied to the high school, but I think if we're looking to get a new pool facility, we should also be talking about the high school at the same time.
Well, I
Maybe
think
putting them together.
the one thing that we could do is look at the pool and decide if we want, I mean, the assessment says that building is fairly structurally sound, there are roof issues, that's a huge money. But structurally, the assessment says it's pretty good, there's some code, you know, some things that need to be brought up to code. So there's a tipping point there, right? What do we wanna do? A lot of the infrastructure that supports the pool is where pool is having issues. I mean, Sam's here, she could talk about the pool if you guys wanted to hear a little bit more about that concept. I think there's also sometimes issues with a pool and a high school in the same building?
Yes, no.
Or,
I just want to comment before Sam comes up, but I'm happy to. I would prefer to look at the pool as its own entity and keeping it alive right now. In this real world right now, I don't see a new high school in the next 10 years. And we need to keep the pool alive, so, it's like the HVAC, it's like Sam says, it's those kind of things that we can do to keep it going, we just put the new liner in. So, I'm sure it will come up when the school's discussed, but I'm gonna go back in history too, because when we discussed, when we redid the elementary school, there was supposed to be a combo effort between the city and the school district to share those spaces, and that didn't happen, so, you know, it's working now as it is, and I support trying to keep that building going for another 10 years, and we'll see what happens. If and when there's a new high school, but that's just my opinion.
Thanks. Council members Astro, or did you have a comment?
No, actually, Councilmember Rainey brought up the exact same thing I was thinking about, where the pool sits and how it relates to the school. But I will add on to what Councilmember Sherman is saying. When I look at water, sewer, roads, public safety, building needs, I feel like the pool is something we should keep running as it is as best we can. But I think those other infrastructure needs, in my mind, are a higher priority. They're all a priority, but I think those other infrastructure needs are rate a bit higher to me.
I just would like to put into the mix here that, we already had a discussion at the school about whether or not sixth grade was gonna move over to the high school building because there's no more room at Mount Nichols. They're maxed out with, their student population, which is a good thing. But, that really impacts staffing at the high school as well, and how we manage servicing those children, and if not to advocate, I'm not sure, I'd love to see it in high school, but a short-term solution is that we figure out how to possibly keep, because next year we're gonna be okay. But the following year, there is not going to be enough room at Mount Eccles, and sixth grade, in all likelihood, is gonna need to move to the high school, so I don't know what the best solution is to that, but it would disrupt the high school staffing and what could be offered, because we have more students in the building with the same size staff. And so that spreads the staff out. And that means less offerings for the high school students, if that makes sense. And I think, Alex Rusin can speak to this more clearly, but, and I don't know what the solution is, except that, A, we need more staffing at the high school, or B, we need an extra room at Mount Eccles. I don't even know where that would go, a modular, I don't know. But, that's another problem in the mix here, that, we have a lot of children that are filling up Mount Eccles, and they're at capacity.
well, so the sixth grade teachers don't move too?
No, they probably won't. There's only one sixth grade teacher right now, and next year there will not be a designated sixth grade teacher, as I understand it, there's gonna be 3, 5th, and 6th grade mixes. So the 2 4th grade classes will move up to 5th grade. And then the 5th grade classes are moving up to 6th, and they're going to blend those groups of students together and have 3, 5, 6 blended classes.
Okay.
Does that make? It's a little complicated.
Yeah.
But it's the best case scenario as, they put their heads together.
Okay, yeah. I don't have kids in school, so I haven't had any following. That's kind of slow. Okay, Sam.
So questions about the pool infrastructure, I guess, if we were just going to replace some high ticket items, I guess you would call them. The roof, it's not, that's maybe the biggest one right now. And the plumbing and the electrical are all, the structure itself is fine, the pool body itself, the aluminum shell, that is okay. It desperately, I think, needs ADA accessibility too, so that is part of it, for the parking lot, but that was in the condition assessment report too, so. In lieu of replacing the whole pool in that, that would also be an option,
So you're saying the building envelope is okay?
yes.
Not the roof, so I mean.
Not the
paid for it,
roof.
But
Yeah, and the actual pool itself, the aluminum shell and where it is good, I mean, we, everything else, if you can just imagine the building just being a shell and then everything else being put back around it. Would need to be happening to save that,
Was there a leak that I heard about a couple
yes.
weeks ago? Did
Yes.
that ever get resolved?
No, so we're shutting down on May 10th right now to continue to investigate that. Now that the school's done, we did make a decision early on to, because we've known about it for a little while, to let them continue to swim. We are spending a little bit more in chemicals because it's dumping out. It actually is two different issues. We had a obstruction in line 5, which is a return line, and it was overflowing the pool, causing it to us to have a leak there. So, but then we found out a few weeks ago that we did have another leak somewhere in the pool itself. We're not sure if it's the liner. The only way to tell is if we take the pool offline and let it leak until it stops, essentially. So the pool liner is under warranty. So just getting that proof that that's what it is, if it is that. If it's not that and it leaks to. If it all leaks out, then it's our plumbing. That's a bigger issue.
can you clarify when you talked about you said the aluminum liner is okay?
The aluminum shell that the
Shell.
liner is in is okay. When they took the old liner off, they inspected it and it's fine.
Okay. So that the leak could be in the liner.
Yes. Good spot, so, did anyone want me to answer any questions about school and pool?
I am one comment. So if my memory serves me correct, so we were one of a few pools that converted to the saline.
That
So the
converted-
saltwater instead.
Yes.
And one of the big problems in Nome where they had the complete reconstructed plumbing was because they had scheduled 40 pipe.
That's correct. Ours was all changed out to reflect the change for saltwater, so we're not the same as Nome was.
So the schedule 80 pipe that was in there originally has been replaced. when
From
they
what my
replaced-
understanding, yes.
Okay.
Where it needed to be, yes, replaced. When they did it, so. Any other questions?
Just one question, if I could, Sam. The warranty on the liner, is there an expiration date on that to determine if it is the liner that's leaking or no?
I would have to look at that, Dave. I think it is 10 years.
Okay, great. Okay, so you have tons of time to be able to, yeah.
Engine on it, including keeping chemicals at the right, there's things, but I think it is quite lengthy warranty.
That's great to hear. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can we speak about the high school a little bit more? I haven't spent a lot of time in there, over 20 years, and I have been to a lot of other communities in Alaska, and I can tell you that I'm not sure what the problem is with our high school, but it sure looks a lot better than the majority of schools I've been to around the state.
There was the condition assessment was also done on the high school, so there's,
So we'll be,
there is some information on there structurally, they seemed good with it. I can't remember the details about it, but it is there, and I can send out the links if you guys want. It's just on the bottom, the first page that comes up, it's on the bottom, it says condition assessments, and it's pulled out by each building.
Oh, that's currently available?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
on the
online.
website.
Okay.
So on the first page, when you get there, you go down to the bottom on the left, very bottom.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I was just gonna add too, last year, and I think we have one coming up, a joint meeting with school board. And most regular meetings, we have either Mr. Russell or, the president of the school board here, and they bring us updates, and that was pointed out to us that they were really starting to discuss new school, the attendance increasing, the count increasing. And so it was brought to our attention, you know, so that we'd be made aware of it, because it's gonna be something that they, in the next 10-20 years to look at, so.
Yeah, well, I was just
Yeah.
curious
Yeah.
because our enrollment, when I was in school 25 years ago, was around 500 K-12. And we had 2 6th grades. And 2 5th grades, and 2 4th grades, and 2 3rd grades. And so it was in the same building. I'm not sure what has happened in remodeling. So, you know, I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time going over it because, you know, we have one expert in the room, but if we're gonna meet with the school board, but I'm curious to hear what's changed.
The number of
That would be
teachers.
something to let the school superintendent know,
Okay,
just that that's a question, because there was just a little bit of email correspondence about the work session next week, and the fact that we'd be talking about the budget, and he said, what else do you wanna hear about, so it's a good.
Maybe the other thing we could ask Mr. Wilson to talk about is just the difference. Well, how do you say it, Susan, like, because of the way the school year's budget
Yes.
is in our budget, so they're on state, we're on.
our
calendar.
discrepancy in our fiscal years.
Yeah, it makes it mind numbing, and mind twisting when you're trying to.
And it's increased so much, the school contribution over these last several years, that it's become more and more skewed. And it's skewed in the bad way on our tough months, for writing bigger checks,
We make the biggest contribution at our least,
where we have the least amount in the general fund reserve.
and I don't know how we fix that, but even just explaining that differences.
Yeah, so that would be good.
Just another comment, because you'd mentioned about the high school, I don't know how much of an expert I am, but I spent a lot of time in that building, but, I believe that building was built in the 70s, so I don't know what the life expectancy of that building is, but it's 50+ years old at this point, and I know that 20 years ago it was, had a major renovation. To make it, earthquake compliant. Because there used to be windows that were, waist high, that went all the way up, and they, as you can see, the front of the building's changed because of that. That's something else to just consider, how healthy is that building if it's, over 50 years old.
Well, maybe we should all take a look at that condition assessment, building condition assessment before next week, and then. It's a good starting point, is that, were done 2 years ago? Yeah.
20 or 21, maybe 22.
22,
22.
22.
Great, great. So,
Okay, so for now, we're gonna go 5. Very personal. To ranking, projects. Was something that you see in all capital improvement project plans. And how we do that is kind of our determination. One thing that we did in that CIP list that was handed by staff at that first meeting is we kind of split those projects into bigger ones and smaller ones. And I think $1 million probably in this day and age is probably more like $3 million to be released. Can we figure out how to get a $3 million project done without going out to a bond, or do we do a lot of small bonds, But But prioritizing things is important. I think it's hard to prioritize smaller projects over the sewer system. So I feel like somehow we need to pull that apart a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware that you could look on the website and look at these building assessments, but I've heard anecdotally that the public safety building down there is probably in the worst shape of all the pieces of city infrastructure that gets used frequently. And so obviously the sewer and water thing is a priority, but I think in my mind, that needs the most of our attention.
Public safety building.
Yeah,
Okay.
and looking at what our, short term and long term are cost benefit analysis.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, Councilmember Sester.
Yeah, just to add on to onto that conversation. Yeah, I think with the information we're looking at from the packet today, I think all those things have to be weighted appropriately, right? Health and safety. So, well, certainly things that are imminently going to catastrophically fail need to be a part of the consideration, obviously. But then also all the other considerations about if it does fail, what's the overall consequences of that, right? Sewer and water failing is a massive consequences community wide. If it's something like, let's say, the pool, which is horrible if we didn't have the pool available, what are the overall community consequences associated with that? So I think the elements that are in like item 2, determining criteria, identifying and ranking our capital projects, I think it's going to take some time to really dive in deep and determine how that priority list should look. Just because something is at its end of life expectancy shouldn't be the only thing that we use. It should be certainly how it affects our community as a whole. And certainly how it would cost to replace something if it catastrophically failed, right? Certain things that we're looking at, we can rebuild. Other things would need to be completely replaced. I mean, there's a variety of things I think we need to look at. It's not as simple as its lifespan is coming to an end. So I just feel like there's a deep dive we got to do on all 5 of these items.
The 5 capital priorities, you mean?
Exactly. Yep.
Councilmember Sherman?
Yeah, so I agree with all the statements that have been made too, and I think in order to not get bogged down, rather than sit here tonight trying to rank all these, I think we should keep all these 5 right here. Keep moving forward with the things, knowledge banks that we have already, and just start to integrate this plan, because if we're gonna sit here and rank them on all these little things tonight, we're gonna be shaking our heads and not ready for, the regular meeting. I'm at least, but well, so I mean, I get the ranking, and I understand it. I'm not sure how we move forward past it.
I think kind of what I was just looking for was, do you like these that are here?
I
Do
do.
you have anything to add to these that are here? Do you have any other, that's why, any other ideas? And we don't have to answer that right now. We could do it over time, but we gotta start somewhere, and for me, it's to put something on a piece of paper and then start going from there. So I pulled these out of the ones that were in the attachment, because it's something I said or see as a good thing. Project risk is something I learned about with the harbor, and the north side is a perfect example of that. If we're gonna do that project, we're taking a risk with contaminated soil in the future. So what, how big of a risk that is hard to know, but there are things we could do to maybe narrow it down a little bit. And do we want to do that? So those are kind of things I think that water master plans and sewer master plans will also help us with things like risk things. Okay, is the poop hall gonna fail, or are the lift stations gonna fail if we can't get a $40 million loan? Or, okay, what do we focus on? Those are the kinds of things. So,
Councilmember Brady?
Yeah, I really like the 1-page format. like that you showed at the end, I mean, that's awesome, and I think, you know, we can go back and, you know, you look at these, just even, you know, take one thing, like you take P and Z and, you know, you look at the planner and you look at what their priorities are. You know, we can all look in there, but you're gonna get 7 different priorities from this table. So, you know, I think. You know, I think coming up with this format, sticking with these 5 things and looking at stuff and going back and saying, okay, what's gonna fail? And, you know, that kind of helps make the decisions for us on the big things. You already have somebody tied into some of these, so they can come off the list because. They're tied into money that's already coming and happening, and then we go back and, okay, once things are not failing. You know, we have to be looking forward, we need a new public safety building. I mean, to keep putting money into that public safety building is ridiculous, it shouldn't be there. So, you know, for me, that's a high priority, but I also don't wanna be walking through sewage on Main Street, so, you know, I mean, these 5 things are a priority, I really like this format, but I guess I don't know what else you want from us.
Can I make a proposal? I'm wondering what staff would think about setting up a spreadsheet that has either priorities in a column on the left and the projects across the top, or the priorities across the top and the projects on the side, one of those 2 ways.
You mean these? What do you mean by priorities? Or what do you, I
I
don't
don't know
know,
what projects,
Water, sewer,
the 5.
Out of those 5, what are the top
Public
3
safety
projects in
building.
each one of those 5?
we'll take those 5, have a spreadsheet. Either the 5 are either across the top of each one is a column, and the priorities, the criteria, I'm sorry.
you're saying criteria.
The criteria that are on page 2 are in the left-hand column. Would staff be willing to set up something like that and take a pass at coming up, you know, giving some point assessments? And that would be something that you could bring back to us and we could look at and talk through. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to do that right here, but
No, but could it be set up and then could we get it too? And
sure.
I mean, it's a process for us. We can read the assessments on our website. We can look at this list and do some ranking and come back with something to work on.
Because decisions need to be made whether or not we're keeping structures, which means putting money into them to keep them moving forward, or we're not gonna do that, and then we need to move towards finding funding for building new, I mean. I don't know what condition the food ponds are in, so it's not on my list of daily things to check in with. You know, I push the button and it goes away, that's all I know, so, you know, you gotta tell me where we stand, and if it's gonna fail. Imminently, then that becomes a priority, I don't know what else to do as far as ranking this. Yeah.
I'm just putting out what I was asking.
Yeah, no, I know,
So-
but that's, I mean, so
I
I'm
agree.
at kind of a stalling point, I don't know, I know what I'd like to see happen first, which is a new public safety building. But, you know, then that means we need to be really advocating for funding for that, and,
I don't know why they can't all be on the list simultaneously. Because funding's gonna pop up all the time for different things, and having them on the list or in this list ranked out. And broken down with what exactly they need and dollars assigned to that. Then we're looking at things instead of looking at grants for everything in the city, we're focused, our funding search is focused. And we're prepared to submit as soon as a grant comes up, because we've had this summer, we've gone through this process.
The process being looking for funding sources.
Well, the process of us weighing out what is the most important structurally to our community, and this is the process we've gone through, we've ranked them, we've identified them.
So are we ranking the 5 things that we already have? Ranked, we've already picked,
Well,
is that,
I thought by putting number 2 in here, that's kind of what you wanted us to do, to focus in on these. Or that's what I thought we had agreed, we were focusing in on these 5 things.
Right. But, yes,
I hear what, it sounds like you're saying, you know, and I think it makes sense, you know, that, we've identified, I think, our top 5. It's true that we don't know what funding is gonna be available for which project at what time. And so, and if we're pursuing different things for different projects, it's not like if funding comes up for the pool that we're gonna ignore it because we're totally focused on water and sewer, you know, you're gonna try to take advantage of that, so it sounds like what people are saying is maybe let's not get bogged down in trying to come up with 3 points here, 2 points there, 5 points for each of these priorities. We can hold on to this list and incorporate it into the plan and develop it later if we want. But we've got the top 5. And the bigger issue might be trying to slot funding into each one of those projects, figure out where the funding is gonna come from, because obviously funding for the pool is not gonna come from the same place as funding for streets. Those are gonna be different funding sources. Probably. So, and there are other parts of this further on, but yeah, am I talking too much? Am I guiding too much, being opinionated?
It's a work session.
Ms. Smith,
Yes, Councilmember Adams.
one comment that just occurred to me here, and then I don't know that they have to be ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm in agreement with that, and that we can be working on them simultaneously, given funding. But I'm looking at water system as the number 1, and our canopies can't function without a healthy water system as well. And so if we're gonna put something as number 1, it's the water system. If we don't have canneries that have fresh water all day, every day, then we've lost the community.
And if something happens at the cannery and we don't have a functioning fire department. You know, I mean, that's what
I
I'm saying, is
agree,
it's
but-
difficult to be like, everybody has a different priority.
Mayor,
I just don't think that the fire department's gonna fall apart.
Yeah. Councilmember, sorry. Councilmembers Astro.
oh, yeah, I just to comment on the conversation at hand. Yeah, I don't know that we need to prioritize everything 1 through 5 either. The only caution I would have is that the limited resources we have in staff time, if we're going to be pulling out a permanent fund for anything or even general fund for anything, I think we do need to recognize that some things should rise to the top. And as Councilmember Sherman had mentioned, yeah, if pool funding comes out of some corner and we're able to take advantage of it, surely we should take advantage of it. But I do believe there should be some focus on some elements that, yeah, of this list of 5 over others, as you know, and it's hard to do that, but I would say water, sewer, roads, things like that, public safety building. I mean, I think we can honestly say there are some things that are higher priority than others. We can work them all at the same time, but I'd hate to see staff and funding go towards things that maybe aren't as a higher priority as other things in reality.
Sam, my understanding is that the master plans for the water system and for sewer system are not complete yet, right? Is that what you said?
June,
Yeah, I'm reviewing the drafts right now, and so the hope is to have, you know, final drafts ready for your review and acceptance sometime in June.
And those will have some prioritization within them, recommendations from the contractor?
Yes, I haven't gone through them enough to say that there are priorities in there, but I mean, yeah, definitely identifies weaknesses and needed upgrades and, you know, future.
Cause there's different elements of each of those systems.
Yeah.
That are,
yes, so there's like the wastewater treatment plant, and then there's lift stations. Related, but not, you know, maybe the lift, I'm just making this up, but maybe the lift stations are in worse shape than the poop pond. So then maybe you try to tackle that smaller part and then, but I believe it's the other way around at this point. So, same with the water, I mean, yeah, water is like everything to this town, but it has to go down the drain too. And so water is probably overall in better shape than sewer. So those are things that we can hash out, you know, we can talk through. And I guess my intention why, maybe I didn't say this well, I mean, we talked about these criteria and I was thinking more of everything else beyond these 5. We've already said these are our top priorities.
Right.
So I wasn't necessarily, and I didn't say that well. Yeah, if we're gonna re-rank what we've already ranked as our top 5 priorities, then just. That's what's kind of spinning.
That was useful, because Karen, you say sewer was probably
Higher than.
higher than water.
Yeah,
So
that's what I wanted to know.
that was useful right there,
Yeah.
and,
And I do think that we can pull together at least 5 projects. You know, what is the need, what is the biggest, what is the nearest to fail? And then some different strategies to make it last, you know, and then also even pull out different ways to, like the roads is the other example, we talked about assessment districts, special assessment districts. That's a way to tackle some of the roads. That isn't another bond, 3 million or 4 million or $5 million bond to pay roads.
Yeah.
We have Second Street, we got the ATAP grant, well, it's not ATAP anymore, community STIP grant will be out again, we'll apply again. But keeping all of them on the horizon and really focusing on ways we can make it work. Same with pool, maybe we could get the roof done. And we could start moving down the.
Well, but you're gonna learn more from those assessments, you'll get some recommendations from the contractor about. Some
The
projects.
engineer.
Yeah, the engineer, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add just another way to think about it, you know, I don't wanna push water too far down the list because, you know, I mean. The Orca catchment needs work, the Murchison catchment needs work, there's a little bit of things that need to be done up at Meals, all of that sort of stuff, but. The beauty of our water system is we have 4 sources of water, 3 of them being our, you know, upland freshwater sources. And so we always do have, we have more opportunities to get water, and then we always have the lake to fall back on to as an absolute emergency. Whereas on the wastewater side, once everything hits Odiak, the lift station at Odiak, that's the main choke point in town, and everything downstream from that, I mean, if anything goes wrong from that point forward, then the entire system goes down. So just to, if you wanna put some, you know, water versus wastewater.
Weakness.
Yeah. You know, we only
That's a
have one
choke point.
wastewater treatment plant and we only have one way to get it to the wastewater treatment
Yeah.
plant. So if we have emergencies on the water side, we have ways to work around them while we solve those problems. So.
Yes.
so I don't wanna just any of this work, cause it's all really great, I love this 1-page thing, I think we should shoot for that. And I think we should maybe rank, when we do sewer, water, roads in the middle, just because they're affected everywhere. And then public safety and I'm gonna say pool, but Sam, don't throw anything at me. At the bottom, but those 5 things, maybe we don't have any money to spend. We don't have any money to do this, we don't even have a balanced budget. So, but I could take those 5, focus on them, we'll get that master plan, we're gonna know, we can put dollar amounts in for the HVAC, for the roof. Well, the leak, you know, figuring things out, and at least. If miracles happen and we get money, or things start to look better, we have a working plan. And we know which things are gonna fail, which, you know, we know the poop pond needs fixing, you know, so. To me, at least we're being smarter about what we need to do first with the little bit of money that we may have.
It's not to say that there isn't any money out there.
No, and I guess that's where I don't wanna be a doomsday person, because as someone who has searched for grants, there are pots of money everywhere. They're a little harder to find right now, but there's still money everywhere, you know, you look hard. So I like all this, and I would still like to take the 5 that we do and look at those criteria for ranking after reading the assessments of the buildings and things, and educating myself more.
And I think too, those criteria don't have to be hard and fast. I know, I would guess that there's gonna be some times when you look at a whole thing and you say. Yeah, maybe this doesn't score very high, but for this reason, we really need it, so it's not meant to be. an absolute, an ironclad rating system, it's just a guide, I would say.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
You know, looking at all this, it seems like it's a little premature to do anything other than what we're doing here without having some of these reports in front of us. And so that's my top priority is like, let's revisit this once we actually have the information. And then there's gonna have to be a bond to fund some of these things. There's gonna be no way around that. Even if we have grant money for part of it, it just seems improbable that we can accomplish these without doing that. So I think as soon as we have this report in here and some time to digest it, that would be my thought is to meet at that point and then, you know, cause I don't have any idea of the timeline of like, you know, when that lift station is gonna fail or anything else. So it just sort of, at this point, from listening to the discussion around the table, it seems like it's like, well, hypothetically speaking, if this happened and I don't think that is necessarily our role. Our role is to make decisions with information, and we don't have information yet.
Also sounds like we need a full-time grant writer. I will say, I think if we. I mean, some of us have some experience and other people might have ideas, but we could start trying to fill out the funding table on page 16, I think it is, with different sources for different projects, because like for the water project, there's low to no interest loans, which we need to know more about the parameters of, but I mean, that's one prospect of funding source, and it isn't something we would have to necessarily use to pay for the whole project, but it might pay for some of it, or it might pay for just one, but anyway, there's probably gonna be a mix, we're not gonna get all the money from all from one place. So,
Yeah, depending on the project, I mean, similar to the Harley one.
that's good. I didn't hear any of that.
So depending on the project and the cost of it, we do need one big funding source.
Mhm.
Similar to the harbor. I mean, one MARAD and like 6 or 7 other
Right.
sources.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to start. Like we did with that, was with a $5 million bond to make the match to the tier 1 grant, and then give us $10 million that then the. You know, I can't even remember them all now, we get a $1 million loan for the pile removal from the clean water. So. Yeah, it's certainly a bond is gonna be in our future. And then that was a little bit of why I just threw in the, you know, that we are getting rid of a very large bond.
I was just gonna say. How deep of a dive can you take into each of those things? Before you decide what's the one we're actually gonna go for, like right now, because like you're talking about staff time and capacity and, I mean, Sam. We don't have a grant writer or a capital project person, that's her.
Yeah, I love the. We have a whole capital project department.
Yeah, I know. Maybe somewhere.
Oh, they do. I don't know. I mean, I think it doesn't matter enough. I mean, we have to start addressing these issues. We just have to. I mean, I was in public works and planning long enough to know that we have kicked the can down the road for a long time. We have to start addressing it and figuring it out. I think one thing that we really need is a finance director who gets the money side of it, you know, and is good at putting out some kind of forecast. Okay, so if we did a bond here for this amount, we'd have this much more estimated payments. And we sort of did that with the harbor, and we estimated $367,000 payment every year. So we put in the 0.05 fish tax and The dock.
Yeah.
So that we can generate some revenue to help pay for that. But right now, you know, we're just skimming by
Mhm.
on our revenue. Those are all really big questions.
That keep you up at night.
Sometimes. So, I mean, I think that we, you know, as staff, we are gonna start. I don't, I'm just gonna say, like, the ranking is already done in my mind, it's already for the 5 things that we've already done. And those are the top things. There's not a number 1, we have to figure out, there is a number, there will be a number 1. But we have to figure out how we do that with finance, with, staff and, you know, all those kinds of things, like. So there's a lot, I mean, we had a full-time project manager for the hardware,
Right,
when that project comes on. I don't have somebody who's there.
no,
who can
when the
hire.
funding was already in place. That was, yeah. Okay, so I'm hearing we're gonna, get more information in June from the reports from the contractors for the master plans for water and sewer. And we wanna take a look at some of the building assessment reports. And I will do as much as I can with researching potential funding sources or ideas to look into anyway, not definite. I'd certainly be happy to help. And starting to fill in that table so we can kind of slot things into different projects and see what might be out there to look into.
Mhm.
Keeping in mind that we don't have a lot of extra staff capacity to do the looking into, but anyway, we have to start with identifying funding sources.
Yep.
And then, yeah, and you're also working on pursuing, or that's the right word, you've been advertising for CFO and,
Yeah, we're gonna be, we have an interview, well, we haven't set it up yet, but we're working with one for next week, so that's pretty exciting.
yeah, that's the same.
So not have another work session on this specifically until we have more information on the.
Yes, I think it's just a fix the staff.
We've got all the information that we have right now.
Yeah.
And to go read those, you know, that
Mhm.
report again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have some discussion on the pool. Figure out that issue, I think there's a few other things that we need to have some discussions about structure within town. Yeah. Yeah,
But you're not-
to spare.
I mean, even if the council doesn't meet again until June, they're gonna read up on stuff and you're still gonna be working with staff on stuff and.
Yeah, we'll be looking towards that. I'm trying to squish around in that template of rolling up the CIPs. I think there's a lot of, especially with the really large projects like water and sewer, there's a lot of variables in there that you can address for less money and then, you know, yeah.
A lot of subcomponents, yeah, that are not, I mean, maybe you can tackle them in smaller dollar chunks.
Mhm.
Comments on this for now? Councilmember Zasker, do you have any further comments?
Nope, no comment. Sounds like a good spot to end on.
If Casey was here, he would be setting the date for the next work session in June. So be prepared when he returns. Okay.
We'll let them know when we get there.
They'll watch the Zoom, I'm sure,
Yes.
or the YouTube.
Recording.
Okay,
All right, So,
Are you adjourning the work session?
we're adjourning the work session.
Okay.
Yes,
Thanks.
can I do this?
Sure.
Okay, work session is adjourned. Okay, so now. Susan, I should open.
Does anybody need a break or are we just going?
I'll do it for 5 minute break. Yeah. Yeah, cheers, you guys. Yeah. Yeah, the only, yeah, I applied.
Oh, I mean, I've been around
For that, and,
and I was on, been on Parks and Rec for.
yeah, because they did that continuing resolution, they rolled different university different spending amounts into.
No, what happened? No, what they had.
Oh, really? Yeah, the wiring, especially about.
So,
Days are very much.
What's that?
Some same twine.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Back into order, I'll call a special city council meeting to order on April 30th. Clerk, roll.
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Deborah Adams,
Here.
Aaron Hanson,
Here.
Casey Kinsman is absent, Mike Middleton,
Here.
Wendy Rainey,
Here.
Kathy Sherman, here, Dave Zastro,
Here.
and that's a quorum of council.
Let's see, so we have an agenda before us,
You can do it with no objection, but I just have to say, can we switch the order of the two executive sessions, if that's okay?
is there any objection?
Oh, no, yeah, okay, sorry, I was just looking at that.
You wanna do the land sale first?
Correct.
Is there any objection to switching the order of those two items? No.
Nope.
Okay. Are there any other modifications to the agenda? Okay, there no objection, we will consider the agenda approved, okay, is everybody in favor of approving the agenda as amended? Please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest or ex parte communications? Any items on the agenda? Any communications by or petitions from visitors? Or anybody else? There's staff in the room, I don't. You guys have additional comments? I don't see any visitors. Okay, so that takes us to new business, resolution 042510. Resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, agreeing to enter into a cooperative participation agreement with other Alaska municipalities, school districts, and regional education attendance areas, and to assume the duties and responsibilities as described in the agreement. One like to
I move to approve resolution 042510.
second. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Manning?
I think it's a good idea. That we approve this, I think it'll help. It may help with costs in the future. I read through it, it looked pretty. I mean, it looked like a good idea to me, I don't have any opposition to it.
Thank you. Councilmember Sherman?
Yes, thank you. So this was. Did this come about by our searching or did?
So what happened is our insurance company was a
DEI.
and then and that's a municipal school district kind of place, and then the other one, AGHI or A or, and now they're one. So they've come together and so all the members voted, everybody has a representative passed. And now this is the time when you basically join the new company, so our old company. Business.
Okay, that's what I thought, and it's just, it's risk insurance, right, not health insurance.
Correct,
Yeah.
it's liability.
Liability,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it creates a larger pool.
Yeah,
Hopefully, it spreads the cost out.
It's like all the states in here, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Big membership role.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I just wanted, I had a question just to clarify, when you said it's liability, so this is general liability coverage for the city and. Does it, do we have, so we have to have a separate workers' comp policy?
No, it's everything.
Everything, okay.
Workman's comp, all the buildings, all the
Okay.
trucks, all the, it's
So
everything.
vehicle insurance,
Other than medical, let's just put it that, maybe that's easier.
Yeah. so it's basically the same provider, but they're merging the.
It's a joint board now, it's
Yeah.
a new board, they renamed it, it's merged together, but same concept. It's just that we had two
Right,
for the state, now we have one.
okay. So it's a, oh, yeah, Councilmember Zastro?
You're probably all along the same lines. I'm, the questions I have, just the one question, is there some savings with this new configuration that we're going to see?
That's the end goal, until everybody's joined. We don't have, so they run on the state year as well. So once we have, I mean, we don't, there wouldn't be anywhere else to go unless you went to a private insurance company, and then it would only be our stuff. So this provides a major, pool to be a part of.
Mhm.
So once everybody's turned in their application and has that, the intent is that there will be savings across the board in liability coverage or Bobby coverage. But it just depends. I mean, if somebody has a $50 million accident, you know, it affects everybody.
Right, right.
It would be the same. A private insurance company as well.
Other questions? All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed, same sign. Resolution passes. So resolution 0425-11, a resolution of, oh,
I was gonna do it for you.
Councilmember Sherman, please.
I move to approve resolution 042511, a resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing specific officers of the city of Cordova as signers of city checks, vouchers, notes, and other documents.
I'll second. Councilmember Sherman.
Housekeeping for the most part, and as a former check signer, this is not a light duty. Thank you to the people who volunteer for it.
Yep, just housekeeping.
Other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign? Passes. Okay, and so the next item we come to is council approval of a restated employment agreement with the city clerk, which may be discussed in executive session.
I was assuming that would be the executive session first and then come out and do that item if that works.
Okay, I'm confused though about why you asked us to change the order of the executive sessions.
To put it last so that the rest of the staff can leave if they want to.
Okay. Okay.
Taking care of it.
Okay, so is that the will of the council?
To go into executive session.
Yeah. Okay. So then,
But after the first one.
Yeah. But we're still going into executive session.
I know, I guess I couldn't reorder the whole thing, sorry about that. I think it's clear what we're doing.
okay, so I guess we can go to audience participation. In case there's any audience comment, there are any audience comments? Does the audience care to comment? So then we would go on to the council discussion with the city manager regarding the land sale negotiation with Diana Rydell. And we want to,
Can you say the whole thing?
Yeah.
You have to say that it's an executive session and why.
right, I just, well,
Oh, I
I guess
see.
I'm entertaining, open to a motion to do that.
Motion to go into executive session, for the matters of which the immediate knowledge would have clearly adverse would clearly have an adverse effect on the plans of the city regarding land sale negotiation with Dan Rydell.
I'll second. And the motion has been moved and seconded, thank you. Okay,
Last like copy.
so and we're inviting the manager and the planner to join us. They're here. So we're on.
Nominate too.
I do apologize for not